Welcome back to the Nerdy Grail, and welcome to a brand new ranking and video game versus here on the channel. Now, two of my biggest and most favourite video game franchises of the lot is the Insomniac Spider-Man universe and the Batman Arkham universe. Both of these are phenomenal game franchises with some pretty heavy hitters, some really good emotional storytelling, some of the best villains in any video game franchise, really well paced, very atmospheric. The list could go on and on in terms of how much love and care gets put into these franchises. And I thought today, let's put them against each other. Let's put Batman against Spider-Man, Insomniac versus Rocksteady's Batman Arkham franchise, and see which one I truly think is the best. I have got 8 video games on this list. Yes, 8 video games. And I'm going to be ranking them from worst to best in my personal opinion. Now, before I jump into this, I'm just going to set a couple of ground rules and also tell you which games I'm going to be including in this franchise. Now, there's a couple of side games here and there that I've decided not to include, like Batman Arkham VR, also Batman like Arkham Origins Blackgate, like the Batman Arkham City Armored Edition. There's like a couple of different editions that you've got here and there. I've only decided to include like the core games, to be perfectly honest. And I have included one game in particular, which, as a fan, I despise it. I know the general consensus is that it's bad. I'll tell you what that is now. So the games I'm going to be talking about on today's list is I'm going to be talking about Marvel's Spider-Man, Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales, Marvel's Spider-Man 2, Batman Arkham Asylum, Batman Arkham City, Batman Arkham Knight, Batman Arkham Origins, and the dreaded Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League. Yes, I know, I've said he who should not be named. Yes, that terrible game. But apparently it is officially canon in the Arkhamverse, despite what we want. And, you know, it's an awful game. But I'm including it in this list nonetheless. Now, how I'm going to be ranking these video games in this franchises, I should say, is I'm going to be ranking them based on a couple of things. Obviously, storytelling is going to be huge for me. Pacing of the games, boss battles, character development, and just overall enjoyment of the game in general. And yeah, just keep in mind with any list, any ranking, and any franchise discussion, this is just my personal opinion. So obviously, if you prefer one franchise over the other and some of the games in your favourite franchise are lower on the list, then that is perfectly okay. And I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on both of these franchises in the comments below and what your overall list would be. But without any further ado, let's jump straight into this ranking, where I'm going to rank and discuss both the Insomniac Spider-Man universe and the Batman Arkham franchise. So let's just rip the bandage straight off, and coming in dead last place for both franchises, in 8th place, it's obviously Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Yeah, I was really excited for this game when it first got announced, before all the trailers and gameplay and everything dropped. Super excited to have another Arkham game in the franchise, because Batman Arkham franchise is absolutely phenomenal, with some really good video games that are super nostalgic for me. And obviously, this was going to be Kevin Conroy's last ever voice appearance as Batman in the Arkham franchise. R.I.P. God rest your soul, Kevin Conroy. We will forever miss you. And so I thought this would be great to honour the legacy of Kevin Conroy, and a good way to maybe sign out the Arkham franchise, or just another great entry in general, focusing on some other characters as well. You know, we've had Suicide Squad stuff before in the movies or in animated movies, so to get to play as other characters rather than just Batman, maybe Catwoman and Robin, was really interesting. You know, getting to play as Harley Quinn, Deadshot, King Shark, Captain Boomerang, characters like that was really, really good. But then the trailers came out. Then the description came out, and then the game came out, and oh my goodness, was it a ball. It dropped the ball completely. It was absolutely awful. Firstly, you couldn't really play the game without an internet connection, and that was just ridiculous. So unless you were connected to the internet, your game was inaccessible, and I think that was disgusting and absolutely awful. The whole style of gameplay was completely changed from the Arkham franchise. You know, it changed to your generic like shooter game that you would see in something like Fortnite or whatever. It had a real Fortnite-esque feel to it, even though I've not played Fortnite, but I imagine it's exactly similar to it. It just seemed like a looter shooter. It was just a bit of a jumbled mess. The pacing of the story was really, really slow. you didn't get the typical Arkham feel at all. All the characters, despite them having little gimmicks that made some of them more unique than others, in terms of like traversal around the world, they all felt the same overall. You know, upgrades for your characters felt like non-existent, or they barely did anything. Difficulty spikes were all over the place. Previous characters in the franchise had been like destroyed, mistreated, like Poison Ivy, you know, Penguin, and worst of all, Batman, which, yes, I know they've done like DLC and extra stuff and packs and stories to bring, you know, say that like Kevin Conroy's Batman is actually like a duplicate, whatever. But I just don't. I don't get into any of that. In the base game, and until recently, they just had Harley Quinn shoot Batman dead, and it was so disrespectful to Kevin Conroy's Batman. It was unbelievable. The only good scene I liked in Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League was the tour of like there's like an Arkham museum where it is like a trip down memory lane. Look at all the stuff we used to like, from Arkham Origins, Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, Arkham Knight. You know, it was a bit of a trip down memory lane. I loved that. And Kevin Conroy did fantastic in his voice lines, you know, but it was just your typical looter shooter. You know, the whole plot is that the Suicide Squad are sent out in order to take down the Justice League, who are being taken over by Brainiac, who is threatening to tear the world apart. Very generic storyline, not really done the best. They brought the Riddler back to do like Riddler trophy stuff, but it was not entertaining in the slightest. Yeah, it was an awful game, terrible game. I have not touched it since beating it. I was lucky to beat the base game the first time. And I haven't touched it in well over a year. It's an awful game, and I don't know if I'll ever go back to it. So that's why it's rock bottom at 8th place. Coming in 7th place then. So I will say, from all the games here on out, when I get to 7 through to 1, they are like night and day difference in terms of I like them a lot more than Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. There's a massive gap between Suicide Squad and this next game. And number 7 is Batman Arkham Origins, the outlier in the original and true Arkham franchise. Yes, because this one wasn't done by Rocksteady. This was done by WB Games Montreal, because they were too busy. They were preparing for Arkham Knight and they needed more time. And so they handed the keys over to them. And so they did a prequel game that takes place before the events of Arkham Asylum. And I thought it was a fairly good game. You know, it still had the Arkham feel in terms of like the combat style. I loved the use of the detective mode. And they had a new style for like detective vision where you could play back the events in your mind. You could freeze in on images, zoom in on images, and see whether like gunshots had ricocheted off buildings. You'd see like debris had fallen on people. People had walked into the room. It was like watching a videotape over, which I thought was really, really cool. You know, the whole premise is Batman's got like a big hit out on him, and there's loads of people coming to take him down. Black Mask has put a hit out on him. So you got people like Killer Croc and Copperhead and Deathstroke and Bane and all coming after Batman. And it's their early doors, early days, and so you get to see how those characters you know, come to life. It takes place at Christmas, so everything's got a wintry feel. You know, Batman hasn't really set up his relationship with the GCPD yet, so it's pretty interesting to see how he reacts and interacts with Jim Gordon. I would say that the pacing is a little bit off at times. But overall, there's a couple of good fight scenes. Like the Deathstroke fight scene is probably one of the most difficult and challenging fights I think I've ever seen, but it's really, really good. Good hand-to-hand combat against Deathstroke. Need a lot of planning for that. The hide-and-seek mission with Bane at the end of the game I think is really good and really tense. They did have to shoehorn in Joker into this game, which, you know, don't get me wrong, Troy Baker does a fantastic job as Joker in this game, because they didn't get Mark Hamill. And also Roger Craig Smith does the voice of Batman in this instead of Kevin Conroy, which I think both do a fantastic job, especially since it's early doors, so their voices will change and develop. And they don't have as much experience, but I thought it was done really well. But yeah, Joker ended up being Black Mask, and I thought that was a bit of a cop-out. But yeah, overall, it was a decent game, and they did a bit of DLC with Mr. Freeze. You had other characters like Mad Hatter was in the game. So yeah, it was good, but it could have been a lot better. Then coming in 6th place for me, I have decided to put Spider-Man, or Marvel's Spider-Man, Miles Morales. Yeah, this is my least favourite of the Insomniac Spider-Man trilogy that we have got so far. This was the middle game that came out between Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man 2. It set up Miles as a new Spider-Man, a new character and protagonist to play as. He got bitten by a spider at the end of Spider-Man 1, so he got given his first proper game, you know, where he's getting to grips with being Spider-Man. He gets mentored by Peter at the start, and then Peter goes off to go on vacation to help MJ with a job that she's doing, a reporter job elsewhere, and so Miles is in charge of looking after New York. And then obviously it all goes wrong in terms of New York gets invaded due to Simon Krieger's Roxxon project and the Tinkerer trying to stop him, and Tinkerer ends up being Miles' best friend. The Rhino's involved. It all goes a bit pear-shaped. But I did think that it was a really decent game. It was a lot shorter than the other two games. It was like having a mini-game in between the two proper projects. But it was really nice getting to see Spider-Man on a bit of a smaller scale. You got to explore all of New York, but you focused mainly on like the Harlem area, so you really got that friendly neighborhood Spider-Man feel. I loved Miles's like Venom powers. I thought that was something a bit different to Peter's. Getting to go like invisible and stuff as well was cool for like a stealth mechanic. You still had your typical side missions. You had like a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man app, which comes into play in Spider-Man 2 then as well. I loved like Ganke as a character, Rio. I loved Finn. You know, I thought all the extra new characters that really enhanced and fleshed out the world was good. We had the return of Kingpin as well. Uncle Aaron, or Stroke the Prowler, was also a nice touch to throw in there as well. So yeah, it was a really, really fun game. It's just not one that I overly go back to playing because it focuses a little bit more on like the puzzle element, especially with Miles's abilities, like where you gotta like link cables together and power things using your electric Venom abilities. So they try to make it a bit more puzzle based, and I'm not overly keen on puzzle based games per se, which did slow down the pace a little bit. And I also didn't find this game anywhere near as challenging as the other two games, which did take the fun out of it a little bit for me. But I think overall it was still a really solid game and a really solid entry into the Insomniac franchise. Then coming in 5th place then, I have put Batman Arkham Knight. Now, I thoroughly enjoyed Arkham Knight. I thought Arkham Knight, again, was a really, really good game, a thoroughly enjoyable game. I thought the main problem with Arkham Knight, obviously because this was originally, you know, supposed to end out the Arkham franchise before Suicide Squad came along and ruined it. But Arkham Knight was supposed to end out the Batman saga, you saw the progression through the Arkham games. But the problem with Arkham Knight is they introduced everything that the fans wanted in terms of we wanted the Batmobile. You know, the Batmobile was shown in previous games, but we never really got to use it. And, you know, it's Batman's iconic vehicle. You know, why not? You know, use it to traverse around Gotham, especially when we learned that it was going to be a big open world, traverse all around the different sections of Gotham. So it made sense to have the Batmobile. The problem is they decided to go a bit ham on the Batmobile, and it became like a Batman Arkham tank simulator, and most of the missions took place using the Batmobile. Some big major boss battles took place using the Batmobile, and so it did feel a bit lackluster. Didn't really feel like Batman. There wasn't the stealth that you wanted, the hand-to-hand combat that we're used to, you know. And so, yeah, it did take you away from feeling like Batman and made you feel like you were playing like a Call of Duty game where you're in a tank or something. It just didn't feel like Batman. But I will say that the atmosphere of Gotham was perfect. It was oozing with tension. I thought the villains were interesting. I thought bringing back all the old villains, you know, to really show that this is Batman's swan song here. You have to take down every villain at some point in a side mission or a main core story mission before the end. You know, from Penguin to Riddler to, obviously, like, you got Catwoman, you got Scarecrow, you got Firefly, you got new ones like Professor Pig. You know, there's so many cool side missions. The return of Hush. You know, there's lots of cool stuff. Ra's al Ghul comes back. Killer Croc, Mr. Freeze. There's so many cool villains and references to other universes like Metropolis and Lex Luthor. You know, they really did expand the world and really made this feel like the grand scale Batman Arkham game that we've been wanting for a long time. The core villains of this one is Scarecrow, which I thought was an interesting take. But the negative there is that Scarecrow, despite him being a lot more menacing than he was in Arkham Asylum, you don't actually ever fight him in a full-on final battle. And I'm like, why? And the other main villain is the Arkham Knight. But the Arkham Knight was sort of spoilt in trailers. And also just the game spoils it for you anyway. In terms of they really show, like, all throughout the game they show visions of Jason Todd here and there, and Arkham Knight clearly has a history with Batman, knows his moves, this, that, and the other. And so they spell it out for you before the reveal, and so the reveal is pointless. They shoehorn in the Joker again, the Joker being the main two villains of the previous games, and then he comes back in this one as sort of like this scarecrow gas hallucination taking over Batman's mind due to Batman being exposed to Scarecrow's fear toxin, and prevents Batman from doing certain things, changes his mood. You think you're going to get possessed by Joker. They pull some bullshit reason that he's still infected with Joker's blood after Arkham City and stuff like that. I don't know. It's all a bit weird. But yeah, I did enjoy the game, but I did think that the Batmobile did ruin it a little bit for me personally. But yeah, overall, really, really good. Really lush Batsuit. Probably one of my favourite looking Batsuits. And like I said, Kevin Conroy on top form, Mark Hamill top form, just everybody on top form in that particular game. Then coming in fourth place then, I have got Marvel's Spider-Man 2, the latest in the Insomniac trilogy. And the main reason that I've put this one below the first one, because obviously I've got the first one still to come, is because of it feeling incomplete and also feeling a bit rushed. Now, one thing I should mention is I really love a good story in video games sometimes, well, most of the time, and I just feel like the story was a lot more rushed in this game than it was in the first game. There was so much emotion in this game, through Harry, and obviously Peter still reeling from the death of Aunt May from the first game, and they used that to build on the symbiote saga and do a symbiote arc, which I thought was phenomenal. Loved the symbiote stuff, but I felt like that was rushed, because there's a long period of the game where the symbiote's not even in it for Peter. Then he gets the symbiote after being killed by Craven. He gets the symbiote, and then he gets rid of it almost as quickly because they know they've got to do Venom, and so it then starts to feel really rushed. And the latter half of the game, despite the boss battles being really good and emotional, they feel really quick, and just like that, and you're at the end of the game. It's a bit all over the place. I love getting to play as both Peter and Miles, and it makes sense. You built up Peter in the first game, Miles in the second game, play as both of them in this game. Perfect. So you get to mix the abilities. You've got some lovely new gear, like the spider arms. I love those. I think they're really good and creative. The web wings is a great way to traverse New York City. Really, really good. Love that. Love the fast travel system as well. I love the introduction of new villains that we've not seen before, like the Lizard and Sandman and Mysterio. Characters like that I think were really, really good, and was the next way to progress Spider-Man's arsenal of villains. I love the theming of addiction in this, and I love the theming of redemption and second chances. I think that's also really good, because that's a huge part of it. Miles having to forgive Martin Lee, Peter having to forgive himself. There's lots of different theming going on in here as well. I thought it was really, really good. I loved all the relationship between Harry, MJ, and Peter. I loved the Emily May Foundation. I thought all the scenes there were emotional. Norman really shows that he's a good father to Harry in this. I don't know, there was so many good elements. The boss battles were really, really good for what it's worth. I love the Sandman one at the start. I love the symbiote versing Lizard. I love Martin Lee and Miles versing each other. I love Peter versing MJ as Scream. I thought that was emotional. I really love Peter versing Miles. I thought that was really, really good when Peter's in full-on symbiote mode and you play as Miles because Peter's no longer accessible to you. I didn't mind the Craven boss battle. I loved how he uses the bell against you. I thought that's really good because he knows it's a weakness against the symbiote. There was lots of really good boss battles in this game. A lot better boss battles, I think, compared to Spider-Man 1. Apart from one boss battle, which I prefer in Spider-Man 1, but I'll get to that when I get to that. But yeah, really, really good. But yeah, the whole story is, Peter's sort of struggling to juggle a life of Spider-Man and Peter. Miles is involved, and Miles is sort of also struggling. He wants to be more Spider-Man than Miles Morales. There's a new threat that comes to New York, Kraven the Hunter, who's forcing villains out of hiding, because he's dying and wants to have one last final great battle. Harry's is just back because Norman got impatient and he's using this symbiote in order to help heal him. But obviously, when there's a tussle with Spider-Man and Kraven, the symbiote latches onto Peter because it senses his spider abilities and a sense of bigger power, and also sense the pain that he's suffering through Aunt May. And so then you got the symbiote arc, and obviously now the symbiote's off Harry, it's killing him, and so the whole plot then is around trying to get the symbiote back onto Harry while Peter's now slowly being overcome by the symbiote. And then when it comes off of Peter, you get then like a Web of Shadows style plot in terms of Venom is now taking over all of New York, and you've got to defeat your best friend. And the game ends with Norman going to Otto for help and advice on who Spider-Man is, so it looks like we're going to have a big team up there. But yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it. Sorry I lingered on that one a bit longer than I should have, but I really like Marvel Spider-Man 2. Then taking the bronze medal then is Batman Arkham Asylum. I think Batman Arkham Asylum is also a really good, phenomenal game. A really good tight storytelling. I love the claustrophobic feel where you're just stuck on Arkham Island, so you've only got the slight bit of outside between the different buildings and locations of Arkham Island to work with, as well as inside Arkham Asylum itself. Really narrow corridors, really gives you like a horror feel to it. Yes, the combat's a little bit more basic and there's not as many gadgets to work with in this game, but it was the first game in the franchise, so there's a bit of leeway there. There wasn't as much like after the story ends content, but again, first game, you know, they're still cooking. But the whole point of this is Batman takes Joker back to Arkham Asylum. Turns out Joker actually wanted to go back to Arkham Asylum, because then as soon as Batman takes him back, Joker escapes and starts taking over the asylum, freeing all the inmates, and makes Arkham Island his own playground. And you basically got to scour Arkham Island, defeat all the major villains, and try and recapture Joker while he's in control. And there's some great villains in this, from Poison Ivy to Killer Croc to Scarecrow. Obviously Scarecrow, there's some really good like hallucination stealth missions with him, which are creepy and really, really good. We've got to avoid his detection. Killer Croc in the sewers, where he's like hiding in the water, and you feel a rumble, he'll jump out, and you've got to throw batarangs to stop him. You know, Poison Ivy and her plants, where she's getting injected with this Titan formula that Joker's using, which turns all villains more feral and makes her plants grow all over Arkham. You get to see the progression of Arkham go from the generic asylum that it is to this super-powered, super-villain lair by the end of it. And I thought like Joker was great with Mark Hamill. Harley Quinn was also phenomenal, really, really good. Kevin Conroy's on top form, as always. You know, I really, really did enjoy it. I did feel that some of the boss battles were a little bit samey, like you versus Bane, you versus a Titan Joker, and it did feel like a bit rinse and repeat. There's a mini boss battle with 2 Titan people, guards, so they seem to not have a lot of variety in terms of their bosses, which is a bit of a shame. But I thought overall, really fun game, really tight game, really good storytelling. And yeah, I thought it was very well paced. Then coming in second place, taking the silver medal, is Marvel's Spider-Man 1 from Insomniac, the first Insomniac Spider-Man game from 2018. Really, really good. Probably one of the best in terms of storytelling, definitely in the Insomniac franchise as well. You know, Peter, you know, Yuri Lowenfold does a fantastic job as Peter Parker and Spider-Man in this game. You know, he's taken down Kingpin. The whole point is he's taken down Kingpin, who is keeping all crime down low because he's the top dog. But Spider-Man finally takes him down after so long of him being in charge. And then all other gangs start to come out and try and take over the city, because now there's a power struggle now, and everything goes wrong. And meanwhile, Peter's working for Dr. Otto Octavius, who's trying to, you know, make the world a better place, help people in need while trying to treat his own conditions. He's slowly starting to lose the feelings in his arms and legs, and he'll lose the ability to walk and all eventually. So he's trying to find research to help himself, and you slowly, as you're working with him, slowly you see his descent due to his rivalry with Norman Osborn into becoming Dr. Octopus. You get a big Sinister Six battle where you fight Scorpion, Rhino, Electro, Vulture, Mr. Negative. You know, I think it is really, really good. The pacing of this game is really good. You know, the world building is really good. The combat and traversal is really good. Yes, Marvel Spider-Man 2 does improve upon it, but I think for the time, this was done really, really well. I think the emotions between Peter and Aunt May are great. The emotions between Peter and Doc Ock are phenomenal. You know, this fatherly mentor figure that Peter looks up to, and then he ends up having to fight with by the end, you know, and has to put him away. It's so heartbreaking. Also with Martin Lee, who Martin Lee becomes Mr. Negative, but he works with Aunt May and Peter at Feast, helping to save the world, helping to provide shelter and accommodation for those in need, but it turns out that he's got another side to him, an evil side to him, and it's all to do with Norman. You know, I just think it's really, really good and love it. I love that they bring Miles into it. You know, MJ's done really well. It's my favourite version of MJ of all time. And there's some great side missions and DLC content in this. Peter works with a copper known as Yuri, who becomes Rafe in the second game. His relationship with her is brilliant, and seeing her descent and change into becoming Rafe is done so well. Absolutely phenomenal game. I highly recommend playing Marvel Spider-Man 1. And then, by process of elimination, my favourite game out of all the Insomniac and Arkham games is going to Batman Arkham City. Batman Arkham City takes the first spot on this list because it was actually the first game out of all of these that I played, so nostalgia does play a bit of a factor, but it's not just that. Batman Arkham City is the perfect middle ground between Arkham Asylum and Arkham Knight, in terms of giving you open world like Arkham Knight does to a degree. This obviously all is cornered off in Arkham City. You still get the claustrophobic feel, you get more gadgets, you get slightly better combat system, an improved combat system from Arkham Asylum, so it makes the subtle changes. You get some great side missions as well, and a great story, which is also high stakes and emotional, because through the whole game, both you as Batman and your arch enemy, the Joker, are dying through the whole game, and you really feel like you're on the clock and time is ticking. So basically, after the events of Arkham Asylum, a lot of the inmates from Arkham Asylum, since that's been closed down, has been moved into this little area of Gotham that's been cornered off called Arkham City, which is being run by Hugo Strange. And it finds out that there's something corrupt going on, and Hugo Strange plans on wiping out everyone within Arkham City, just as a big global little extinction of all the villains, just get rid of them in one clean sweep. And Batman's obviously gone in to investigate and stop him, well, let himself get captured, and, you know, stop Hugo Strange. Meanwhile, he, goes to different areas. He finds Catwoman being held by Two-Face, which leads him to finding the Riddler, which leads him to discovering that Joker is still around, and Joker wants to see Batman. He goes to see Joker. Joker injects him with his own blood, and we find out that Joker is dying due to the Titan formula that he used in Arkham Asylum, which he's now injected Batman with, so now Batman is also dying, and so Batman and Joker now have to find a cure from Mr. Freeze, who's being held by the Penguin in the museum, in order to save their life. And you basically go on this whole journey of trying to save yourself, save the Joker, and find out what Protocol 10 is, this mysterious little event that Hugo Strange is planning within a couple of hours. And yeah, you really feel like you're on the clock. They introduce some great characters like Penguin and Mr. Freeze and Ra's al Ghul. And there's some great boss battles. In particular, the Mr. Freeze boss battle is phenomenal, where he basically can't use the same trick on him twice. You're in an enclosed area in the old GCPD building. You can't use your batarangs twice, or glide kick him twice, or use the remote electrical charge gadget gun twice. It's really, really good and really gets you thinking. Some good boss battles against Clayface and Ra's al Ghul, some great areas to explore. I thought Hugo Strange was a great villain. The side missions as well, like the Hush side mission, the Deadshot side mission, the Mad Hatter's Tea Party. I thought all of them were really, really good. And really set up Arkham Knight in a big way. There was lots of Easter eggs for Arkham Knight, like you could find Scarecrow's mask and all still hinting that he's alive, and Azrael, this warrior, was there, like basically saying that there's this big fight that's coming up in the future and be prepared. It was all really good and grand scale. It does culminate in the death of Mark Hamill's Joker, because he doesn't get the cure, only Batman gets the cure. And it is very sad and emotional, and I didn't think that they would kill off the Joker, Batman's biggest rival of all time, especially knowing that there's probably future Arkham games coming. So they had some big balls to do that, and wow, it was emotional and sad to see Joker actually bite the dust in the end. But what a really good game. They had a good little DLC mission, which I released a year, I think, after Harley Quinn's Revenge, where you see Harley reeling from Joker's demise and has captured Batman, and you play as Robin in order to save him. So they had good extensions to the story. But yeah, really, really good. Love Arkham City. Absolutely deserving of the favourite on my list. But that is going to be it for my ranking and my sort of franchise discussion of the Arkham games and Insomniac. If I had to choose between Insomniac Spider-Man and the Batman Arkham franchise, I think it would be really tough to call, because if I had to consider the Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League and Arkham Origins, but mostly the Suicide Squad, that does bring the Arkham franchise down a great deal, whereas I think the Insomniac universe are a lot tighter in terms of their gaming. But I don't know. I think nostalgia would slightly make me lean towards the Batman franchise, but I do think that the Spider-Man franchise is absolutely phenomenal too. But that is going to be it for my ranking and discussion. Hope you did enjoy this video. If you did, please like it by giving it a thumbs up and comment down below your thoughts on the Batman and Insomniac franchise. Which one is your favourite and what order would your games come in? Let me know in the comments down below. And subscribe if you are new. But for now, this is the Nerdy Grill signing off. Hope you've had an amazing day and I will see you all in the next video. Bye for now, everyone. Wait.